I remember that when I was 21 years old, I had the opportunity of meeting the investors of Grubhub, Givey, and Snapchat. And I pitched my company to them. This was before Undocumented Startup that turned into Undocumented Startup. It was called Prepare. I pitched my company to them. I was raising $200,000. And I remember them telling me, like, why are you thinking so small? How big is the market, etc. Then I met other founders that were making $500K a year. I met other founders. I had one of my friends that had just raised $2 million. And I started asking myself, like, what's the difference between a rich person and me? Like, why are they thinking differently? So I went down the rabbit hole. I started reading books about J.D. Rockefeller. I read books about Henry Ford. I read books about the founder of Blackstone, which is one of the biggest private equity firms out there. And I learned a few things. So in this episode, my goal is to sort of share some of the stuff that I've learned by studying some of these rich people, even connecting with a DACA millionaire a few years ago. And hopefully you guys find this helpful.
Welcome to Undocumented Startup by Juan Hernandez.
So hi everyone, if you're new here, my name is Juan Hernandez. I'm the founder of Undocumented Startup, and my mission is to help undocumented students get into entrepreneurship. So if you're an undocumented student liaison struggling to help your undocumented students get into an entrepreneurship career, please visit www.undocumentedstartup.com. Again, that is www.undocumentedstartup.com. Now, the first lesson that I've learned from connecting with these rich people is to be direct. Be direct with what you're building, with who you're helping, what your niche is, etc. This applies to business principles. I had a conversation via the phone with a DACA millionaire about 2-3 years ago, and I was telling him my whole vision for Undocumented Startup. This was before Undocumented Startup was called Undocumented Startup, and he told me something. He's like, well, if you're trying to build something for the undocumented community, at that time the company was called Prepare Biz or whatever, he's like, why don't you use the name Undocumented into your company so like that people know what you're trying to build? And at that time, I was playing around with different names. I was trying to build a immigrant biz hub. That was kind of like a name that I had in the past, and I removed that and I went in deeper, right? Because immigrant biz hub was still kind of general, and I wanted to build something for the undocumented community. So that's why then later I started to create Undocumented Startup, and it has helped me out tremendously, right? Like now, when people hear Undocumented Startup, it kind of gives you that I'm helping undocumented people start up companies, right? And that was the first lesson. That you have to be direct. You have to tell people who you're building for. You have to be very niche, because if you're generic, nobody's gonna really trust you. So that's lesson number one, be direct. Lesson number two is to dream big, right? When I met the investors of Grubhub, Givey, and Snapchat, they were raising $7 billion, right? And I remember the very first time I was in a room full of entrepreneurship students was in my second year when I got hired to take photos of an entrepreneurship event. And I remember these students, none of them looked like me. They go up in the room and they pitch. I thought they were going to pitch mom and pop shops, coffee shops, but no, they were thinking big. They were like, how do I build the next Facebook, the next Twitter, the next Snapchat? That's when I thought to myself, why doesn't my community think that way? Right? So it shifted my whole mindset of like, okay, these people, they're not just thinking on how do we survive? How do we thrive? How do we build $1 billion company? It's a unicorn company. That's what they were thinking. And I got inspired, right? So I got inspired by the venture capitalists. I got inspired by these students that never looked like me when I was 19 years old, right? And when people build something, they go for the biggest thing that they can do, right? Now, lesson number 3 is to reframe money. See, I grew up hearing that money was bad. Having a lot of money is bad. Oh, you only want money, etc. And I also grew up with people telling me that rich people are greedy, rich people do things. But there's a lot of rich people that do a lot of great things. They do a lot of donations. They help out a lot of people, right? I am a big believer in that having more money is only going to make you more of who you are. Everything costs money. You go out, like I went on a day recently and I spent easily $200 in a day, right? And that's how easily you can spend money, right? And it depends on what lifestyle you want to live. But having money is not bad, The more money I have, the more people I'll be able to impact, the more money, the more people, the more donations I can do to the causes that I care about. And that's really my long-term vision, right? So if you want to reframe your vision that rich people are not bad, right? The media portrays them in a negative way. And yes, there's people that are bad and whatnot, but we're talking about just reframing the mindset, right? I don't think having a lot of money is bad. Everything costs money. If one of your family members gets sick, you're going to need money to help them out, right? What if you stop working because you got injured, like what happened to me last year? You need money to still pay your bills, right? And as you grow older, things are going to happen. That's what I'm learning right now. Things are going to happen in the family. Things are going to happen to your life. You might get injured and you never know when you're going to need more money. So it's better to have, we're not just talking about 6 months. We're talking about 6 years. Can you have 6 years of money, right? And you could do a lot of good with the money that you have, and there's really nothing wrong with having more money. That's lesson number 3. Lesson number 4 is to focus. Lesson number 4 is to focus. Wealthy people specialize. I remember I talked to my students recently that they were telling me that they were doing different services. And one of the things that I've learned with Undocumented Startup, because I used to do 3-4 services. I used to have an incubator. I used to have a workshop. I used to have a boot camp in the first year. And you don't get anywhere. Like, it's good to experiment. But the moment that I started specializing into just the Undocumented Startup Bootcamp, that's when the business started growing. That's when more institutions wanted to partner with me, right? So I tell all of my students, okay, you're doing 5 services. Which one are you going to be the best at? Which one is the one that people are going to know you for? If you look at In-N-Out, they're known for burgers. They only have 3, 4, 5 things on the menu. You look at McDonald's, burgers, right? You would never go to a doctor that also does painting on the side. You would, like, let's say you break your leg, you wouldn't go to a doctor that does that and they also paint and they also have a tutoring business on the side. No, you would go with the specialists. You go with people that you know are going to solve your problem. So when you're building a business, when you're doing something, even in your career, you want to make sure that you focus. There's something called the shiny object syndrome, where new things come out, and then just because people are making money somewhere in some other way, you might want to hop on, but that's not how it works. You see, like I'm telling you, the moment that I started focusing on Undocumented Startup into just the boot camp and just focusing on that, that's the moment that my business started growing and my business became something that it is today. That now I'm able to do it full time. Right now, I'm not saying I'm wealthy yet, but I'm on the path to that, right? Because I'm helping other people and I'm doing the service. I'm helping a lot of other students solve the problem that I once had when I was a student, right? But it starts with just focusing. Is before adding anything, you got to focus. Okay. Lesson number 5 is you always got to be learning, right? Rich people are always learning. I read this from the book, The Millionaire Fast Lane. And it talks about that we have a lot of time to waste. When you look at people nowadays, and I'll give you a clear example. So last time I was getting a haircut, right? I was getting a haircut and, because one of my friends, he cuts hair. I was getting a haircut and I was looking at all the other barbers that are similar age and whatnot. And when they had no clients, they just take out the phone. They're just scrolling on TikTok. They're just scrolling. They're laughing, talking about all these jokes. When in reality, all that time is being wasted. You could be using that time to market. You could be using that time to call people. You could be using that time to stand outside of the barbershop, get some money, right? Get some people to go through the door, right? But a lot of people are not doing that. But you know where that comes from? It comes from not knowing, right? A lot of people are just ignorant. A lot of people just don't know what they don't know. You see, if you know marketing, you're a barber, you have no clients, all right, start going on TikTok Live, start doing something, right? But rich people really focus on always learning. Rich people focus on, okay, let's read stuff. There's a lot of time that we're wasting, right? When I'm driving to the gym, I could easily put on an audiobook. When I'm at the gym, I could easily put on an audiobook and listen to a podcast. And all the resources are there. You know, if you want to learn from 100K entrepreneurs, $1 million entrepreneurs, you're able to hear them on podcasts. You're able to find them. You just have to be out there and you always got to be seeking, right? You want to learn AI, you look at videos, then you apply it. You look at videos, you apply it. The same with marketing. There's free resources out there, right? Like I've used public library resources to download audiobooks, listen to them, and it costs nothing. You just got to have a library card. So you have to be resourceful and you have to continue to learn. You know, you don't know what you don't know. Like right now, I can't tell people like, okay, here's how you build $1 million company because I'm not there yet, right? So I need to talk to people that are there to learn how they got there. And a lot of the people that I've connected with, I mean, they say focus. They say continue to learn. Focus on marketing. Do this. Do it rapidly. What's failing? Look at the stuff. Continue to learn. One of the things that I started implementing within my programs that I had never done before is now I'm recording every session so I can look at, kind of like how an athlete looks at their recordings, what they did right, what they did good, whether they bad, then they're able to tweak it. That's what I'm going to do with my programs, right? What were things that didn't end up working? How can I make the intro better, right? And that's this constant iteration of learning as a founder, as a person. And that's what you kind of have to look at, right? And that's how I see it. And you want to learn from people that are above you, that are a little ahead of you. Right. But that's another big lesson that I did not think about before. But you think about it. I mean, you really maximize the amount of time. You stop looking at soccer games, stop looking at entertainment. You don't need entertainment. I mean, maybe you listen to something. That's how I was able to get some principles. Right. When I was still building this business, and I'm probably make an episode on how I made Undocumented Startup into a business. When I was still just starting out, I was looking for answers. I was like, I don't know what to know. Let me read some books. Part of it is mindset. Part of it is learning. But the other part is like implementing as well. All right. Lesson number 6 is to save to invest money. Lesson number 6 is to save to invest money. All right. There's a lot of people out there that say get into debt, do this, all this stuff. And I've used debt in the past. Right. But it's better when you're not in debt. It's better when you have a cushion saved. Because when opportunities happen, when a lot of people are selling houses, when a lot of people are selling things, the people with money are going to have all the opportunity in the world to invest into something. I'll give you an example, right? So I was talking to this founder that owns a car wash here in LA, and he was selling it. I found out that he wanted to sell it. He wanted to sell it for 100,000. And I told him, like, what would be the down payment that you would accept for somebody to buy it? He said $200,000. And when I started thinking to him, I was like, damn, if I had $200,000, I'd be able to invest into this, right? But I don't have that $200,000. Yeah, money gives you power. And if you have a big cushion of money, you'll be able to implement that into your business. You'll be able to reinvest it into what you're learning. You'll be able to invest it into other things that are going to help you grow the company. So there's a big misconception out there that you shouldn't be saving money. I think a lot of people should save more money. I made the mistakes that when things were going good, it's easy to spend money. It's easy to buy other people things, your family, all these things. But at the end of the day, you have to be saving for the future. Everything costs money, like I mentioned. You want to get married, 14 grand. I talked to some of my friends. Oh, you want to go out, maybe $200 right here. Oh, you want to pay gas prices are expensive, right? So everything costs money. And if you're not saving money, I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand how some people live day by day. They never think about their goals in the future. Having a baby is going to cost money. Hiring a lawyer is going to cost money. Paying your taxes is going to cost money. Everything costs money. So if you're not saving, you have to start saving now. Even if it's $10, $20, 10%, 20% of what you're making, and you want to start building that cushion, it'll be great if you had $100,000 saved, $500,000 saved. That's going to give you some room to start taking these big bets. That's what I learned from these rich people as well. All right. And that's something that I'm still implementing now. Before I'm going to be 27 this year, but when I turned 25 years old, I started asking myself, where do I want to be the next 5 years when I'm 30 years old? And I started taking things more seriously. I started thinking, I'm like, okay, I need to take up another part-time job to start building the savings. And I want to continue doing that. Up until I can, especially now that you're young. When you were young, when we're in our 20s, we have all the time in the world. We have all the energy in the world. So you want to make sure you use it so that in the future, we're able to have a life that a lot of people don't think about. Now, lesson number 7 is to focus positively. Look at things positively. We all live in our own perception of how we view things. We could both look at the same airplane, or we can both look at the same problem, but you're going to have a different perception than I'm going to have based on everything we've gone through in our life, based on what's happened to us, based on all these other things. Now, what I've learned from rich people is they never think negatively. They're never thinking about, oh, what if it goes wrong? No, they're delusional. They think that this is going to work out. From all the founders that I've heard, all the founders that I've connected with, they're like, I'm going to make this happen. Even if I'm the dumbest one in the room in that moment, I'm going to make this happen. But they focus on what's possible. They focus on what they can do, right? And this is the same thing that I apply in my programs at the Undocumented Startup. I never focus. Like, I know some students have told me, hey, how do you do this? And with the ice rates, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, you can focus on that. And that could be the reality. But you know what's worse? Is not doing something about it, right? If you're still working under the table and you're getting underpaid and you have a very expensive degree, you had a degree in engineering or in STEM or anything like that, why don't you do something on your own so you actually get paid for what you're worth, right? But it starts with your belief system, and it starts with being positive. It starts looking at something. It starts looking at that glass half full, not half empty. When you start looking at life and all the negative things, that's all you're going to see. But if you start looking at opportunities, you'll find them everywhere. But you have to be positive. You don't have, you'll have the negative thoughts here and there, but you have to be delusional to say, I'm going to believe in it and I'm going to be able to do it, right? And that's another lesson right there. Lesson number 8 is to have this long-term thinking. From the investors that I met, they had raised $7 billion just to get one quick home run, at least one home run. Imagine raising $7 billion. You're investing into multiple companies over the course of 10 years. And really all you're looking for is one company to become a unicorn company. And that's when I realized, these people are thinking in decades. They're thinking of 10 years from now. They're not thinking about the short term. They're able to invest, make some mistakes, obviously they do their due diligence on researching the founder, the company, all that stuff. And they're looking at the economy, but they're focused on the long term. They're not focused on the short term thing. And that's one of the things that leaves me also with having patience, right? I think with Undocumented startups, sometimes I'm thinking about, I need it now. But I would much rather have it 10 years from now and use all the stuff that I've learned to build a bigger company, a bigger organization that I had initially thought of, right? And that's why sometimes I'm able to sacrifice profits over over just doing the program, service, connecting, building relationships. And that's the way that I want to look at things moving forward. Right. So you want to think long-term thinking, right? You want to think, where do I want to be 5 years from now? Where do I want to be 10 years from now? Right. Because a lot of the plays that I'm making right now is building me towards that life where in 5 or 10 years, when I'm building where the next iteration of what I'm doing, that's where I want to build. But I need to develop the skills. Have you ever seen lottery winners? They win huge amounts of money and then they go broke, is because they never developed the foundations. They never learned the lessons that came with every single amount of money that you get paid, and how you're growing economically, right? And that's what happens when you don't have the lessons, when you don't have the foundations, when you have not made the mistakes. So I would much rather make the mistakes now, so when the time comes, I'm able to really understand what to do with what I have. Now, lesson number 9 is to have the service mindset, right? And I got inspired by Henry Ford. I was listening to his book. Henry Ford is called The Life and Work of Henry Ford. And one of the biggest principles out there, and remember, Henry Ford today would be worth $200 billion. And one of the biggest lessons that stood out to me was focus on service and then the profit will follow. Where he never really maximized profit because he wanted to bring this into the hands of other people, right? And he really emphasized this number that he would make really cheap prices so he can sell more cars than he was doing. They was able to produce, and that's what ended up helping his business, right? And the way that I've applied this within Startup is like, not everything should be for profit. Everything, how can I build a partnership so good that people end up coming back, but also students are also able to succeed? And that starts telling me, all right, what are the partnerships I need to develop? Who are the people I should connect with? Maybe I should bring some students back. And that's how I was able to bring other undocumented entrepreneurs into the ecosystem that we're building, right? Like, that's why we do something called Undocumented Startup Chats, where we bring other entrepreneurs that are within the undocumented community to share their story, tell us how they made money, and then we have an audience. So it's things like that I want to continue focusing more in the future, because I believe that undocumented entrepreneurship should be more accessible and people should be sharing their stories. But I also understand that not everybody is comfortable, but I do believe that the handful of people that do have that knowledge, they'll be able to help out the next generation of undocumented entrepreneurs that are students, and really, like, again, I learned this from Henry Ford. I mean, this is a huge lesson. Focus on service. Everything else will follow. Sometimes I look at other entrepreneurs that I see on TikTok, on Facebook, that they offer to do free services for other people. Like, they offer a free car wash, and then somebody ends up telling them, hey, do my car. And that's how you build positive clientele, So don't be afraid of doing service. Don't be afraid of doing free stuff. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it as long as you have a goal and you're determined to get to that goal. Everything should be fine. Again, I've implemented this with free community events. I'm going to continue to implement this as I'm continue to expand to other states, build new partnerships, because I'm focused on those relationships. I'm focused on building this problem, be the best one at it. And that's how we're going to grow the company forward. All right. So service is important. Lesson number 10 is we're looking at big opportunities. All right. Rich people only look at big opportunities. They don't look at, $100 opportunities. They may not even look at $10,000 opportunities. I was reading the book from the founder of Blackstone, and he said a quote that stood out to me. He said, it's equally as hard to do something big as it is to do something small. So it's equally as hard to go at a 9 to 5 as it is to build a big company, right? So you got to choose. Right? It's equally as hard being fit. It's equally as hard being chubby, being obese. It's equally as hard having a relationship. It's equally as hard not having a relationship. They're both hard. You just have to choose what hard you want to do. So they both take time. They both take time. They both take a lot of effort. But I would much rather go to something big, because we really only need one big home run. And when we're able to solve this problem for undocumented people, to helping them create jobs for themselves, and not only survive, but they're able to thrive. We're chasing something big. It's not something that has been done before. It's not something that everybody's going to be okay with, right? But that's how we want to build it. So we want to focus on bigger opportunities. How can I impact 100 people this week? How can I impact 1,000 people in a year? How can I impact 1,000 people in a week? That's the way that they think about, and that's the mindset that I'm continuing to build. Now, lesson number 11 is that they are disruptors. They are disruptors. I was watching the show called Super Pumped of the Uber founder, and he was a disruptor. He disrupted the entire taxi industry, right? By building Uber and by allowing people, random people, anybody, to take people on their car, get into strangers' cars, and take them anywhere. And now Uber is great. Now there's Waymo, all these other things. Now Waymo's the new disruptor. But the biggest thing that I learned from these billionaires and these millionaires is that they are disruptors. A lot of people are not going to be okay with what they're building. A lot of people might sue them. A lot of people, they may get into trouble with the US, all these other things. But eventually they overcome them. Eventually all those things go away and they're able to build something that has never been built before. Uber, think of Grubhub, think of Facebook. All these people were disruptors. And by being disruptors, you end up doing something impactful, right? That's what the biggest thing with Undocumented Startup for me is, if I can figure out a way to help change the narrative of undocumented people through entrepreneurship, because they're investing into people, they're hiring US employees, they're paying taxes, they're doing all these things. I think that's going to be something that not a lot of people are going to be for, but there's going to be a handful of people that might be. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing it for them. At the end of the day, I know I'm helping my community, and that's what motivates me moving forward. So I'm okay with being a disorder. I'm okay with having different belief systems. I'm okay with disagreeing with a lot of people. I don't need everybody to like me, right? Like I mentioned to you, I had an organization 2-3 years ago threatening to sue me, and then I had another person, similar within this community, tell me, hey, I think your business practices are unethical, and I don't want to talk to you. I was like, that's fine. But the biggest thing that I always say is like, unless you are paying me, it's kind of hard to listen to you. You know, it's hard to listen to people that are not paying you or that never work with you, that never giving you money. Right? Because if they had, I've never had that response with somebody that has paid me for a program, right? So it's okay to be disruptive. It's okay for people to disagree with you, and you have to be okay with that if you want to be rich, if you want to build wealth. Now, lesson number 12 is that volume is key. This one comes from Alex Hormozi. He has something called the Hormozi law, and essentially he says there's something called the rule of 100. So every single day with your business, you have to do 100 actions towards getting to your goal. So 100 marketing actions to get to your goal. Right. So this means 100 cold emails, 100 cold calls, 100 minutes of content creation, and you'll be able to get to scale your business. And I applied that. You know, I didn't believe in it, but I applied it when I first launched a entrepreneurship course for the Undocumented community. I marketed through TikTok. I sent out 4,000 messages within a span of 2 months. And the biggest problem that we have when we're building our company and we're just starting out is that not a lot of people know about us, right? So how could we get a lot more people to know about us? If we go viral, 1 million people might see this video, and then we have 1 million leads to buy our product or our service, right? So that's the way that's the mindset that we have to develop, right? And Alex Hormozi is worth over $100 million or more, right? And he's on the path to becoming a billionaire, and I just look at him and I'm like, okay, this is golden, because when I've gotten my contracts, it's really just a volume game. You know, I speak to students all the time. They're like, oh, my business is not growing. I'm like, how many people have you reached out to? They're like 10. I'm like, that's the problem. 10 in 2 weeks is no, there's not a lot of volume, right? If you do 10 a minute, 10 an hour, you could do 100 a day. Right. But that's the way that you look at it. Volume is king, especially when you're building your business, your marketing. The more people you reach out to, you'll end up getting luckier over time. You'll never miss a lucky day if you try every day. And you pair that with volume, you'll be able to grow your business. That's how I was able to build my business to where it is now. Again, we're still in the process of building it, but we're getting closer as we continue to do more volume. Think about, okay, this is my customer that bought. Where can I find 1,000 more people like this so I can reach out to them? And then the last one, which is the most important one, is that rich people focus on having leverage, right? So I've learned that leverage comes from people. So when you hire people, when you have assistants, when you have contractors, when you have part-time, full-time employees, you get leverage because you can multiply your time, right? We only have 24 hours in a day, but if you have an employee that is also doing the similar actions as you, now you're doing 48 hours of the same thing. And if they're good, now let's say you have 10. So you're really multiplying time with the people that you have. You can also have leverage to capital. Right? I've learned this from venture capitalists. I've learned this from people that raise money from investors, right? They get $3 million or $4 million, $2 million, $1 million in exchange for pieces of their company. And they get capital and they also get mentorship, right? So when somebody raises money from an investor, they give them a percentage, but they also get mentorship. They also get connections to their resources. And that's how some of these companies end up going really fast once they grow a company, because they're like, okay, they have all these other people, they have all this capital that they're able to deploy, and a mentor and an advisor that's going to help them get there, right? So capital, this can come from your own personal savings. It could come from other people's money. And it could also just come from, taking out a loan or using a business credit card to build leverage, right? Next type of leverage is media. Right? When you look at Mr. Beast, he has 400 million subscribers, right? So that's why when he launches a company, he has all the distribution that he's able to put out, And with that amount of distribution, he's able to get a lot of clients. He's able to get a lot of leads. He's able to get a lot of sales, right? He's worth like $5 billion now, or $1 billion or more. And that's because he has that big media empire. You think of the World Cup, you think of the Super Bowl. People pay like $10 million or more to do a 5-minute ad. Why? Because a lot of people see it. A lot of people have that. So they have that leverage, right? So we're building, the way that you can build this is like build a podcast, kind of like what I'm doing, build a social media brand, kind of like what I'm doing. I have 25,000 followers on TikTok, which I haven't posted, but we're going to get back to that. And then the last type of leverage is coding, right? When you build a piece of software, you can sell that over and over and over again, and people can buy it over and over and over again, right? So those are the 4 types of leverage that I've learned from rich people, right? So they focus on people. So those are employees, contractors, people that can help you scale your time, capital, right? You can use that to reinvest into the company. Capital comes from venture capitalists. Capital comes from angel investors. Capital comes from maybe your friends and family that lend you money or they invest into you. Media, by building a media empire, you'll be able to have a lot of leverage, and you'll be able to have and launch different companies. Yeah, so what I was trying to get at right here, my audio went out during this clip, but what I was trying to get at is that there's the last form of leverage, and it is code. So if you are able to build a piece of software that can be replicated, where it's not going to have a lot more costs, you're going to be able to really scale that, right? So at the end of the day, what I've learned is that if you're able to use leverage, you're able to multiply what you're doing, your output, not just by 10 times, not just by 100 times, but even 1,000, a million times. Like we mentioned, right? You have a media empire, you're able to have that distribution. Imagine you have code, you're able to have that distribution plus scale, right? Then you have people, and now you have AI. So really what I want you guys to take away from this episode is like, think about how can I multiply what I'm already doing today to get a lot more out of it, right? Even social media, even the TikTokification of all these social media platforms, where at any single moment you can go viral, and at any single moment you are able to get distribution. Definitely take advantage of those research. So I'll leave you all with all of this. Remember, if this is your first time listening to my podcast, please go ahead and share it, because it's with your help I'll be able to continue to help other undocumented students get into entrepreneurship. Make sure you share this with a friend. If you're watching it on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe. And if you're watching it on any podcast platform, give it a rating, follow the podcast. And with that being said, everyone, remember, Undocumented Entrepreneurship has no limits. And remember to be motivated and stay motivated, baby. Okay. I'll talk to y'all soon. Very soon.